So in this video we're going to look at a simple search on Medline via OvidSP. So I'm at the main entrance here to the Ovid website and I'm going to log in under the account that everybody in ScHARR can use. It's ScHARR Lib is the username, and the password you'll have to get from the enquiry desk in the library or email one of the information specialists. Okay, so I'm going to log in, and the first thing I'll see in a moment will be the list of all the different databases available via Ovid. So the one I'm going to use today is Ovid MEDLINE, and I'm going to use this version, which is it includes Ovid MEDLINE in process. That's the very latest records to be added to MEDLINE that have not yet been indexed, and then it's the main Ovid MEDLINE all the way from 1946 when the database started up to the present day. So I've ticked that. I'm going to OK it, and now I'm in. Okay, so the topic I'm searching for today is the relationship between domestic violence and alcohol abuse. So there's two concepts there. I'm going to search for them one at a time. The first one I'm going to search for is domestic violence. And you'll notice that I've got a little box ticked over here that says map term to subject heading. The reason for that is I want to see if Medline is familiar with the concept of domestic violence and already has an index term or a subject heading for that. Let's find out. Okay, so here's a list of possible headings I might be interested in. Now, in fact, I'm only interested in the first of these, but it's pretty much exactly what I asked for. Let's just have a look at that heading by clicking on it, just to see what's involved in domestic violence as defined by Medline. Okay, so there are 5,000 odd articles about domestic violence, but there are also some narrower topics here that are just sort of listed underneath it, and that's because they're more specific aspects of domestic violence. So there's child abuse here, elder abuse, and spouse abuse. If I'm interested in those topics as well as domestic violence in general, then I need to include them. So I can either tick them, or tick the ones I'm interested in, or I can tick this little box here that's called explode. And explode means get everything that's a narrower topic within the concept that you're interested in, within the subject heading that you've chosen. So I want domestic violence and all of these more specific things, so I'm going to explode it and continue to go and get those articles. Okay, if you ever see this screen, my advice would be to include all subheadings. These are a slightly different type of aspect of a topic that you've selected, and the trouble is with subheadings is that they're not allocated very consistently, so unless you're a really experienced searcher, it's best to just include all of them. Right, so I've got 38,000 results there about domestic violence, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to have a look, as well as subject headings, I'm going to have a look for any articles that mention domestic violence in places like titles and abstracts. So I do that by doing a keyword search, and I've just switched off the mapping feature there because I want to just look for this occurring in all different places, and it's going to search in places like titles, abstracts, several other specialist fields that are available in Medline. It's not searching the full text of the article though, that's very important to understand. That makes it a bit different from things like Google. Okay, so I've got some more results about domestic violence. I'm also going to try some synonyms for domestic violence, so things like domestic abuse, and partner violence, family violence, familial abuse. Okay, so variable numbers of results for those articles. Sorry, for those keywords, phrases that I've searched for. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to combine all of those search strings that I've put in. So I've put in 6 different search strings around that broad concept of domestic violence, including a subject heading, an exploded subject heading, and keyword searches. I want to combine all those, and I want to combine them with OR, because I don't mind if an article is about domestic abuse or partner violence or family violence, as far as I'm concerned, they're all of interest. So I'll combine them with OR, and that'll basically find me an article that has any of those things present. Right, that gives me a grand total of 41,000 about my first concept. So now I'm going to move on to the second concept, which is about alcohol abuse. So again, I'm going to search initially for a subject heading. So let's try and map that to subject headings and see what it suggests. Okay, so this time Ovid has only come up with one suggested subject heading, and it's come up with alcoholism, which might be of interest, but it's not exactly the same as alcohol abuse. So once again, I'm going to click on this heading. I'm going to find out where it is in this subject tree, as we call it. This is the sort of the mind of Medline. It's the hierarchy of different topics which are indexed in Medline. And we can see here that alcoholism, with 70,000 results, is part of a broader category called alcohol-related disorders. And nearby are related topics like binge drinking, alcoholic intoxication, alcohol-induced disorders. I think that I'm going to include alcoholic intoxication and binge drinking and alcoholism. So I know that they're not exactly the same as each other, but I think they'd all be relevant to the topic I'm talking about, which is the impact of alcohol on domestic violence. So let's include those three selected headings and continue. Okay, so that's my subject heading search for alcohol, but I also want to do a keyword search around it. So let's try switching off the mapping feature and searching keywords, so searching titles and abstracts and those other places. So I'll try alcohol abuse, alcohol misuse, alcohol drinking, maybe even related phrases that don't use alcohol but imply it. So you could search for things like heavy drinking or drinking heavily. Now, as you get more sophisticated at searching, you'll learn a few shortcuts. There are numerous variations here around heavy drinking, drinking heavily, drink heavily, heavy drinkers, and you could try all of those different word endings and different versions of different orderings of the phrase, but it'd take you quite a long time. So there are a few nice shortcuts you can use, and one of them is to use the asterisk. So drink, we'll find drinking, drinkers, or any ending of that word. Then you can use the command adjacent, which means look for two words nearby each other, and you can specify how nearby. So I'm going to say within, say, 3 words. Drink, drink or drinking, adjacent within 3 words of heavy or heaviest or heavier, heavily, any of those endings of the word. And they can be in any order, but they've got to be within 3 words of each other. So heavy or sustained drinking would be found. Okay, so that search string, drink adjacent to heaven, actually replaces the last couple of search strings I've done around heavy drinking. So I'm going to delete the previous 2, knowing that everything they found will be found by line 14 as it currently is. So I'll remove those and it renumbers the searches. And now I'm going to combine all of the searches I've done around drinking alcohol. Okay, so again I'm going to combine these with or, because I don't mind if an article talks about alcohol abuse or heavy drinking or alcohol intoxication. Any of those things are going to be good enough for me. Right, so I've now got a grand total about domestic violence and a grand total about alcohol abuse. And these are 2 separate concepts. I'm interested in articles that mention both of those things, so I'm going to combine them with and. And that's brought the number down considerably. So we're looking at 1,696. Still rather a lot, probably more than you're going to want to actually look at. So now would be a good time to think about putting some limits on those results. There are lots of different limits you can use. The most commonly used are visible here on the main search page, so people will often limit to English language. They might put a publication year limit on, so I'm going to limit to 2000 to current. I wouldn't advise using the full text one, because if you do, that would ignore any full text available on other websites. What you're saying if you tick full text here is I only want full text from Ovid, from this particular website. And that could be a mistake because you'd miss out on a lot of other good stuff that's out there. So I'm just putting on English and publication year limit for now. Let's see what that does to the number of results. So that's brought it down by about 500. You probably want to keep going, apply some more limits, and the additional limits are good for that purpose because you can find things like limit by study type. You might limit to clinical trials, or you might limit to systematic reviews, for example. There are other ways you can limit if you choose to. Anyway, we're not going to worry about that today because this is not your real search topic. So, having got the results down to a number you're happy with, it's time to have a look at what you've found and see if it's available to you. Remember that when you're searching databases like Medline, you're searching the entire published literature. It's not just what's available at the University of Sheffield, so some of it will be and some of it won't be. Right, so looking at these first few results, some of them have got article as PDF available there, so they're very easy to get hold of. It means that the full text is available within Ovid. That's nice and straightforward, but it's not always going to be the case. Sometimes the results will be elsewhere. So say I was interested in this one, number 5, improvements in empathy and cognitive flexibility after court-mandated intervention program in intimate partner violence perpetrators, the role of alcohol abuse. Quite a mouthful. So I want to have a look at that in more detail to decide if it's going to be relevant to my topic. Let's click on it and find out. So I've clicked on it. I can now see the abstract, a description of what the article concerns, and it's sounding like it's pretty interesting actually. It's sounding pretty relevant. So in order to see if I can get the full text of that article, I'm going to click on Find It. Find It will link to ScHARR+, the University of Sheffield's library catalogue, and it will try and get me the full text if it can. So we give it a moment to link through, and it looks as though we can get full text for this article through various websites. I'm going to try this first one, PubMed Central. And here we are, it's linked me through to the article. So sometimes you have to, having been linked through to the journal, you have to browse to find the specific article. On this particular case, it's found me the exact one I'm looking for, and it's even taken me straight to the full text. So that's quite nice and quite convenient. You might prefer to have the PDF version of that article if you're going to print it out, and that's also available. Okay, I hope you found that useful. Do have a look at the other videos available in Iris if you're interested.